from my own observations, I have no reason whatsoever to think that Bigfoots are anything else but a perfectly normal species of mammal.
Just guess, based on what I've seen on the show, that what you've been able to do over the last 10 years or so has only increased your belief that Bigfoot is a physical, flesh and blood, biological creature.
Yeah. In fact, several of my friends who are advocates of the paranormal perspective on Bigfoot, I tell them, you know what, I don't have the most experience in the world. I've been doing this for 25 years, and people have been doing it longer than me. But from my own observations, I have no reason whatsoever to think that Bigfoots are anything else but a perfectly normal species of mammal. Other than people say, well, I've only been doing this for 3 years and I'm positive that they're this or that, or interdimensional, shapeshifting, UFO riding whatevers and stuff. And I go, okay, well, that's fine. But if that was the case, if they were speaking to me telepathically, if they were doing like phasing in and out and doing all these sort of things that people claim, I've been around them more than perhaps anybody else, say, on my block, or the average human have. I've had the opportunity to be in their presence on a number of occasions. Shouldn't they have, or would they have perhaps by now reached out in such a way to let me know that I was messing with something bigger than I think? And that has not happened. And of course, the other side says, oh, you're spiritually constipated, or any number of whatever jabs they can throw at me to vindicate their own perspective on things. But I have to maintain, based on the evidence, there's nothing paranormal about them. They're kind of weird in some ways, but that doesn't make them paranormal.
I mean, Cliff, you're too nice to say this, so I'll say it for you, and not to speak for you, but I'll say it out there anyway. And I say this with nothing but love for Greg Newkirk, because we know that he thinks Bigfoot is a ghost. But I will say this: it's lazy. It's lazy to jump to that paranormal conclusion, because basically what you're saying is you just haven't gone out there enough to find physical evidence of these creatures, that you have not come across enough physical things to convince you that you're just going to make that leap since I haven't found anything physical, then it's got to be something metaphysical. Well, no, it just means you haven't found it yet.
No, Greg and Dana are good friends. I love them both. The Newkirks in general are just wonderful,
Absolutely.
Splendid people. And I disagree with them, and they have their own reasons for it. But the thing, I'm a Bigfooter, right? But that doesn't mean I don't read counter arguments. And I just got done reading a book by a well-known skeptic named Sharon Hill, called Scientifical Americans. It's a good book, actually. She's got some of her Bigfoot facts a little incorrect, a little fuzzy, and she's mostly read the skeptical books, and those are rife with Bigfoot errors, I should say. But she's done a good job with her critique, and her point is well taken. Is that one of her points in the book seems to be that people go to the paranormal because you kind of don't need proof. Right. You can say whatever, and proof actually detracts from your claims in some ways. And I think that's kind of one of the problems with the paranormal aspect, is that you can say whatever you want, and some of these things are absolutely unprovable at this point in the game, so you're on safe ground. Whereas I don't deal like that. I deal with a biological reality that is a Sasquatch, and therefore the physical evidence is by far the most important. People can tell me they've seen Bigfoots, and yeah, there's some interesting things that could come from that, but really, it's where did you see it? When did you see it? And did it do anything unusual? Those are the only three things that matter nowadays in Bigfoot reports. That you saw one run across the road, okay, when did you see that and where did you see it? Because running across the road, that's common. And that's not physical evidence. And that's why the footprints and the hair samples and the handprints and other trace spoor like that, that's where that comes in. And that's what makes it so important, because that's what sets aside Bigfooting from paranormal or the religious or parapsychological or whatever word you want to put on it. Bigfooting, there's a biological thing out there because something is making those prints.
And not only that, but there's been other types of evidence that's been gathered over the years as well. I know, Moniz, you've had hair samples before that people have brought to your attention. And
yes. Hair samples, fecal matter, and other things like that. People don't understand, and I'm sure Cliff will agree with me. You can identify a species by the gut parasites and gut flora and fauna found inside fecal matter. So, and
See, I've always questioned the fecal matter aspect of yours, though, because it was delivered to you in a flaming bag on your doorstep.
true.
So, I'll come. But no, that's a good point. And there's been enough, Cliff, that I think that people have been able to say, all right, but we're not saying that it's definitely a Bigfoot that left this, but we're saying it's not this, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. And when you start eliminating enough possibilities, when you're left with only one possibility of it being something unknown, then that opens the door for it being a Sasquatch creature.
I find that a lot of people with physical evidence, like hair samples, don't even want to get it tested. And that's so fascinating to me. It's weird because, like, I personally think anthropologists and biologists should be right here next to me in this game doing it with me. But even if I'm wrong and Bigfoots are not real, which is ridiculous at this point, I think, but even if that is the case and I'm ridiculous for thinking it's real, why aren't psychologists jumping in on this? Because I know people who say, oh, I've got hair samples from the one I saw, blah, blah, blah. You should go get it tested or whatever. And testing is kind of free when it comes down to it, because you can tell a lot about the species of animal it came from just by looking at it under a microscope. It doesn't have to destroy the sample. It isn't consumed in some sort of fire chemical test. You don't have to take DNA out of it or anything like that. You can actually look at it under a microscope and tell what kind of animal it came from in many cases. Not all, but many. But people don't want to get it tested because, check this out, and I think this is a psychological parasite in the paranormal and Bigfoot world, is that people have a sample, but they don't want to get it tested because, check this out, behind the veil is, as long as I don't get it tested, I have Sasquatch hair. Mm-hmm. But if I do get it tested, it might be something else.